And hello, and welcome back to the Dutiful Future Show. The week is week 6, I want to say?
No,
seven.
Week 7.
It's week 7. Which means this is episode 7. Thank you very much. And normally I introduce my guest first, but she had to come in and save me. This here is Katie Fulton. Hello, Katie.
Hi.
Who are you, Katie, and what do you do?
What do I do?
What do you do? Why are we here? What is this?
Why are we here? Well, I am an exec for Discourse Society, which is a newly formed student-run society. We literally became official maybe like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks
fresh,
ago.
Popping the cherry of Warwick Discourse.
I know.
So today I have Katie Fulton on to discuss about the new society, what it is, what they're going to be doing, and essentially what the Discourse Society is from my perspective right now is that they have weekly discussions about very pressing topics. They've had a wide range of issues so far, such as does Britain have a drinking problem, such as 2 things that we're going to be going into later, which I'm not going to spoil yet.
Yep.
Ooh, exciting stuff.
Exciting.
Obviously nationalism were 2 very popular ones. So Katie, what is the purpose of the Cultural Appropriation Society? What is the purpose? That's some foreshadowing. That's going
to be an article about it.
Oh no, what's the purpose of the Cultural Appropriation Society? What's the purpose of the Discourse Society?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of a background over the society. The president, Becky, and I, 2 years ago, did Warwick in Africa, and there wasn't really any internet connection. So what we used to do is we just rinsed all of Becky's podcasts. So we just listened to them every evening. Then we would just have little debates and stuff like that. And Becky was known for kind of being a bit controversial and asking quite pushing questions. So she wanted to create a society where we kind of just discuss. So this society, we kind of aim to just provide a forum for kind of informal debates where everyone just feels comfortable to speak, or not even to speak, just to kind of be there, listening, expanding their knowledge. We want to kind of alleviate echo chambers, basically, and kind of bring up questions that people wouldn't really speak about in everyday conversations. So, like you're saying, we have a variety of topics. We've even discussed the ethics of porn. I know. Does Britain have a drinking problem? Which was quite funny because people came with pints off the T-bar and stuff that. Yeah. And kind of uni drinking culture as well, in particular, and polyamory and monogamy, and the ones that we're going to discuss today. So very interesting topics, yeah.
So you mentioned that it was more of an informal debate environment. Would you describe the society's sort of events as more discussion focused or more debate focused?
A variety, to be fair. I think we aim more for kind of just discussions, but they can turn a bit more kind of debate.
Yeah, so it's more of a facilitating manner if people happen to be very adversarial, like myself, and want to actually make it more of a debate, as I'm sure I'd be desperate to. They definitely would. One simple question: why should people come along?
Why should people come along? I mean, why not? Expand your knowledge. I think these are topics that I feel like they're topics we should, as humans, speak about to understand the world. So I feel yeah. And also it just
discuss and learn. Go to T-bar afterwards.
Exactly.
So what are the ones that are coming up? What are the most exciting new topics that will be coming up that you can reveal the exclusive on the Dutiful Future Show?
Well, am I giving spoilers about what we're discussing later?
You know what? Let's just do it.
Yeah, why not?
So we have 3 segments planned for the day, with the first segment about the Discourse Society, obviously, which will be relatively short. Section 2 is going to be about cultural appropriation, which is a topic that they've covered, that Discourse Society have gone over before. And then finally, we'll be going for a very exciting up-and-coming one.
Yes.
Is reality a dream?
Yes.
Whoa. Spooky,
deep stuff.
Are we even real? What is this? Oh my God.
Is this a social construct?
Everything's a social construct if you want it to be. I mean, let's do this. I can't remember what I said. Oh yeah, so what other ones do you have coming up apart from reality?
Well, next week we are doing, should the individual have the right to vote in a democratic way, or should kind of rules be put in place by higher authorities?
Oh,
I know.
Yeah. System.
What else are we doing? We are doing, should people be held accountable for what they said when they were 10 years old on social media, and kind of the role of social media. Veganism will be coming up soon, which will be quite interesting. I'm trying to think, what else is there?
That's a lot of very pressing topics.
I know.
It's quite good to provide that sort of, diversity in discussion, because a lot of other societies tend to steer away from anything which can be even vaguely controversial in a sense.
Exactly.
And I think you brought up the issue of echo chambers, which I'd like to expand a little bit on what the problem is, you would say, around the issue of people being relatively insular with their ideas and concepts.
I just feel like they get stuck in a bubble, really. And I feel like I don't know, I think to kind of get a more grounding like view of the world, you kind of just need to alleviate them and kind of, yeah.
So what would you say is the main thing holding people back from having these sort of discussions, essentially saying, why is the discourse society needed in order to break through into these sort of more important, these obviously such important issues of our age. Yeah. Why is society needed in order to break through this?
Well, I mean, I feel like people nowadays, especially at uni, people feel like they have to believe a certain way to kind of fit in and not kind of create controversy around the campus. So I feel like this society, it brings different aspects, different opinions that people might not be open to normally, that people might feel like they can't express in a normal situation because they're scared of what other people say.
So what the discourse society can do is provide essentially a safe environment and an exploratory environment into issues where you can discuss controversial topics, and even if, for example, you had an opinion which most people consider wrong, you have an ability to talk your way through them.
Exactly.
Because, it's important to say that if someone has a very bad opinion, they're never going to learn it's a bad opinion.
Exactly.
So that is the Warwick Discourse Society.
Yes.
They have events every Tuesday at 6 o'clock, I believe.
Yes, 6 o'clock.
Follow them on Instagram at Warwick Discourse to get weekly, or probably more like every other day updates about what is going on to go along to events, and listen to the rest of this episode to have a little bit of a taster of what topics they covered in the past and topics they might cover in the future. Hello and welcome back to segment 2. In segment 1, if you somehow missed it, we covered what the Warwick Discourse Society is, what they're aiming to do, and obviously what they'll be doing every Tuesday at 6. And now we're basically going to be advertising the Warwick Discourse Society in the best way how, in having a lovely discourse.
Yes.
This segment is going to be about, was it the most popular topic, I would say?
It was our biggest turnout.
Ooh, and this is cultural appropriation. Ben Shapiro's favourite topic to talk about online, crying about uni students not being very happy with him. So I've got a definition here. You can tell me whether this is okay or not. Unacknowledged or inappropriate adoption of the customs, practices, ideas, etc. of a people or society by members of another and typically more dominant people in society.
That was the Oxford Dictionary.
Exactly. I literally Googled.
I've got the exact same definition right in my head.
We were talking about this beforehand. We were messaging each other saying, all right, so what should we do? And we were like, cultural appropriation, great. And I went, cool, I'll prep it right now. Yeah. And I Googled, what is cultural appropriation?
Exactly.
And I'm sure soon you're about to find out that I also Googled cultural appropriation, for and against.
No problem.
That's fine definition.
That is a fine. Sure. I think there's only like a slight leeway in that a lot of people are saying more we shouldn't call it cultural appropriation, we should be calling it cultural misappropriation, because people are like using these cultures in the wrong way. In a way.
Okay, so it's to say that it's not simply, it's sort of drive a distinction between certain cultural practices that you would engage in and misappropriate, as in specifically which involves, I guess, the negative parts of this.
And but it just depends. And also there's like different levels in that as well. Like I think you mentioned kind of the more dominant society. I think people bring in a lot of stuff like kind of colonialism. It's like this one dominant society is in a way indirectly or directly kind of oppressing a lower form of society.
So what would you say are some major examples of cultural appropriation on, like, I would say, I guess, 3 levels? The more like common level, you might see something which is relatively like, more like celebrity wise, and something egregious that you would consider to be very bad. Sort of to give people a sort of scale of what kind of I guess medium we're operating in.
Yes. Well, I mean I'm of a mixed race myself. I'm of East Asian background, and kind of seeing nowadays the kind of crazes on like Pretty Little Things and Nasty Gal, kind of the Oriental in inverted commas outfits and inspired like that. Just seeing kind of like that, but not actually saying it's an Oriental background, or kind of like Coachella and stuff like that. Coachella, just festivals.
Just Google Coachella.
Like, just Google Coachella. You see girls in like Native American headdresses, hennas, bindis, all that kind of jazz. I feel like, yes, that on a kind of very low level.
Sure.
But then at the same time, we have to admit that we are in a kind of global society, a neoliberal society, where even on the lowest form in kind of England with kind of takeaways and food, we see this kind of stuff. Like chicken tikka masala.
Yeah.
That is, in a way, a kind of, you could argue, a form of cultural appropriation. We are taking something of their culture and changing it to our own fashion,
So what would you say are the main arguments against people culturally appropriating? So the main arguments to say this isn't something you should be doing. What are the key points that for someone who hadn't really heard of the problem and was like, well, why can't I just wear this?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Well, I think cultural appropriation becomes a problem and not just kind of an appreciation of a culture when, one, it's bad in terms of economics. Like, if one society, like if one ethnic group, let's say the Native Americans, they see their culture being expressed through clothing, but they're not getting anything back. Like, these clothing places are selling clothes, but not giving anything back to the culture where they got the inspiration from.
So would you say that issue almost falls into the concept of like intellectual property? To say that
in a way.
To say that, well, but would it almost be to say, would it have been fine for these people to engage in these sort of practices if they paid some money to the communities in which they were involved in?
I don't know, because like there are examples whereby I think it was a American fashion brand. I can't remember. I think he actually gave money back to a Native American charity that he kind of got inspiration from. But that is kind of just a one-off example. I don't think that is that many.
But could you say that almost falls into an issue of the sort of commodifying of culture, to say that culture is merely a tool for communities to use in order to raise money, you know?
In a kind of way, yeah. In a way.
Does that not fall deeper in sort of definitions of what a culture is? I mean, I think most people would take offense to saying that their culture is anything to say, oh, your culture is merely simply an economic tool. Yeah. You know, is it much more deeper than that for it to say, oh, it's fine for it's fine people to do these sort of things as long as it benefits us monetarily, you know?
Well, there's more levels to that, I'd say. I mean, I could link to that kind of, I think it's bad when it doesn't give credit for their own culture. Bringing up, again, like the Coachella festival kind of gear. And I think a big example that came out recently or a little while ago was the cornrows. Like, Kylie Jenner started donning it, and it became known as a beautiful, beautiful thing, new fad. But at the same time, Zendaya's been doing it for ages, yet she's not been getting credit for it.
So how would you say that if in the issue of credit, I think we can fall into a sort of issue of blurry lines around cultural appropriation. How would you say that, you know, how should credit be given? Because the issue is, it's a dangerous topic to engage in, because I feel like it's very easy to fall into the trap of almost cultural isolationism, where it's, well, oh, if I take any steps towards this, I'm just going to simply, you know, get in a lot of trouble. So I'm simply just not. I'm going to ignore everyone else. I'm going to do my own thing. Yeah. And that sort of ends cultural blends and, you know, mixing entirely. Yeah. So I would say that it'd be a reasonable criticism to say, in order to sort of apply these sort of premises, like, oh, as long as you do these things, it's fine and respectful. What does credit mean?
That is a good question. That is a good question. I don't know. It's because I've got a bit of a tenuous argument about this, because I am of mixed race heritage, and I also grew up in East London, where I was surrounded kind of with Asian cultures. And when I was growing up, I would get henna done, and from an outlook, people would be like, oh, this is just a white girl getting henna done. She's not appreciating. But at the same time, I knew about the culture. I appreciated. I knew what it meant. So, I mean, I think it's kind of having a sense of education and awareness about it.
So you could say that perhaps a better model towards approaching the issue would be teach people about the sort of issues behind these sort of topics, and then allow more decisions to be made. Because, for example, with the Native American headdress, that's generally considered offensive mainly for the reason that they got massacred, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
And then taking these sort of cultural things, it almost looks as sort of like a war victory in some sense. Yeah. So perhaps it requires much more education. But would you say that this education is a personal thing to be done, or should it be
that's the question? Whose job is it? Yeah, whose job is it? I don't feel like it is the job of the culture to educate. Especially in the society we live in now, where we have such great accessibility. Wow.
Perfect.
Accessibility. Got there in the end.
It's fine. I'm great at editing. It'll just say from here to here, accessibility.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Do research about these cultures.
So, would you say that, for to play devil's advocate, would you not say that, well, as someone who, let's say, there's someone who wore, let's say, henna on their arm.
Okay, yeah.
White girl puts henna on her arm, and she says, well, and someone says, oh, you need to learn about the culture behind this if you want to do it. And they say, well, you seem to be the one that's caring. This is your concern. If you really cared about it, you just tell me. I'm here to listen. But if you're the one that's, I guess, you're the one that's that is aggravated by this. Surely that's how this should work. I'm not too bothered, but I'm perfectly willing to listen.
Maybe it is a two-way system. Maybe we should. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, we shouldn't have too high expectations of people to go out and learn fully on their own. There should be a bit of like leeway from us to kind of educate people.
Yeah.
But,
so would you say that there's issues of, essentially, like with most things in life, it's a lot to do with context. One of the arguments that I have researched behind why people argue against cultural appropriation is it can be definitely done as a form of mockery. In the most extreme example, you have people doing blackface.
Yep.
So would you say that it matters a lot behind what the person's intention is?
Yes, massively.
So would you say that in Coachella, for example, as you brought up, their intention is to mock in a sense? Or would you say, oh, they just think it's a cool look?
I don't think they have any intention to mock it at all. I feel like they just think, oh, it makes them look a bit more exotic.
Yeah. It's the Coachella style.
It's the Coachella style. It's the Coachella style.
So is there much of a problem around that? Because a lot of, obviously you Google Coachella, one of the first things you're going to see is complaints about what people are wearing in this capacity.
Yeah.
So would you say that if their intent is pure, it's not really a big issue? Or are there further issues of, all right, they need to know more about it, or they should be more respectful in certain ways?
I think it's just when it becomes that this culture's aesthetic only becomes beautiful, in inverted commas, when when the white person does it, basically.
Okay. So it's not just about, I guess, the interpersonal system. It is the idea that this culture was only given value when it was being displayed in this manner. It was only given attention in that way. And I guess that falls into the point of, was it Kylie Jenner?
Yes,
who were corners, but then Zendaya was doing it ages ago. Also, shout outs to Zendaya. She's a big fan.
She's a lovely lady.
Big fan of her work. And there was another argument I read about, which was issues of diluting culture in a sense.
Okay, yeah.
So I guess you could almost say it's like the chicken tikka masala. You take the pure flavors, and then eventually they get dripped down into something which is a more, I guess, impure form.
Yeah.
Would you say that this acts as a diluting force when it goes through this sort of transfer from the culture's origins to, I guess you would say, mainstream British and American audiences?
I appreciate. We live in a globalized society now where we have to expect that cultures are going to mix, especially coming from London, where I used to work in Brick Lane in Shoreditch. Just walking down, you just see the numbers of different kind of ethnic, different kind of restaurants, and I think it's good. I think it's a great thing. 50 years ago, 60 years ago, didn't have that kind of stuff. So
would you say that the framing of it being diluting, whilst potentially correct, is not a negative thing? It's diluting in the sense that we're mixing two good things together.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, diluting in the way that, water gets slightly diluted when you add squash.
But it tastes nice,
a better thing.
and it's something new.
Oh, something very new. There was an article I read which basically it was quite a I guess cynical argument, and it basically said that British culture doesn't have enough to offer in order to create a new form of, I guess, something better. It simply said that this relationship is not a reciprocal one. Britain's entire culture is taking and then formulating, and that's how it has been diluted. Would you agree with that sort of premise?
In a way. Elaborate further, please.
So, of course. So basically, the point of the article was, so it was talking about the issue of diluting of culture. And it kind of brought up the counter-argument, which is to say, well, it's not diluting, it's a mixing and a blend of two different cultures. But then their argument is essentially, well, for example, British culture, throughout history, its entire culture was based off of the things it took. So it essentially took cultures from other places, brought them together, and then put those together, diluting them and mixing them up, whilst not offering anything to the table.
Okay.
Was its point.
I kind of see where it comes from. I think less Britain and more kind of America. Because the idea of kind of American modernity in a way, is a tautology. Like, America was always modern, and America always came out. This is controversial. This is very controversial.
Very modern,
I'm like,
it's fine.
America was always modern in a way, and kind of everything that they came out was from taking stuff from other cultures.
Because I personally egregiously disagreed with this article. I found it almost quite insulting. So would you say that, like, I think it's very reasonable to say that Britain and America have their own cultures in a sense.
Yeah.
For example, America describes itself as the melting pot in its early years. Would you say that's an accurate description? Or would you say that it's not a melting pot, it's someone running around taking things and then putting them into a pot and then saying, you can't have any of this pot, this is my pot?
No, I'd say it's a melting pot right now. I'd say.
Because, I mean, you could definitely point to, in America, there's a lot of communities which identify themselves not as just purely American, there's Hispanic American, and there's African American, and you could say that there's definitely been more, growth of these individual subsections of culture while still identifying to one overall belief. And I mean, there was a rather... optimistic article that I read similar to this. It brushed on the issue of cultural appropriation, but it was mainly saying that America is less united by culture and more united by ideas.
Okay.
So it's a culture. It's meant to be a country which allows people to have their own individual cultures and communities. That's why I guess you get very strong sort of communities and enclaves in different places, while still being at least you'd hope aligned on the key fundamental values of the country. So I read an article by Ash. Is it Sakar?
Yes. I've met her.
Ash Sassi. Oh, have you?
Yes, I have.
Like? I've read quite a lot of her. Oh, really? Very nice. I've seen a lot by her. I follow her on Twitter. Not too bad. And her article around cultural appropriation was quite unexpected, I'd say, for her general brand of politics. And she basically said that we need to dial down on sort of cultural appropriation, using it in an interpersonal sense, because it can be rather alienating. She brought a lot of attention to the issue of, I guess, isolationism in terms of culture. Would you agree that this sort of cries for cultural appropriation, these concerns around people doing things like henna on the hand, for example, is only going to separate communities even more and increase the sort of stigmas around them if you can't, because would you say it's a bridge to learning about different cultures to not be able to engage in them?
I feel like we do need a certain level of engagement to learn. I think we need to be hands-on to learn about it. And as long as we're not disrespecting to a certain degree, I feel like it's a good thing.
Okay, so what would you say, what should be, I guess, if we've established the problem of what cultural appropriation is and the sort of limits of where we should be applying it, if we would say there's an example of someone doing it egregiously, and it's like, okay, this is disrespectful. You haven't really properly, I guess, given credit to the culture, and you've sort of taken this. What should be done about it? I guess is the natural step in two forms. I would say, because for example, the issue of things only being giving value when they are being appropriated, as it would be put. How would that be solved? And then two, how do you stop someone who has done it? I wrote down a list of potential things. Like anything from societal pressures to
it's call out culture and
the law.
The law.
Where would you say, at least in a personal sense, how it should be done? Is this a structural thing that needs to be changed, or is this simply make people aware so they can say to their friends, hey, maybe don't do that?
I think on a kind of more grounding level, maybe just mentioning it to people. In terms of law, I think that's only for kind of the extreme cases. I think kind of I think it was the American football team. I can't remember. American football, maybe. That kind of donned the Native American.
It's the Chiefs.
Yes.
They've been the Chiefs for a while.
Yes.
Yeah. So would you say there needs to be?
I feel like examples like that do maybe need to take a little more serious action.
But what kind of serious action would you say? I mean, as we established early on, this can be seen as quite a large issue for a lot of people, almost insulting to a culture. Would you say is it enough for simply to sort of say to people, hey, maybe don't do this? Or if it is such a wide and explosive issue, does it not need more structural changes? And if so, what could they even look like?
What are you saying? Kind of rules and regulations within those kind of
That's the question.
I mean, if it could work.
But could it?
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. I just think over time, touch wood. I feel like society is going to merge more, and who knows though? Who knows?
So would you say that perhaps the aim of talking about this issue is less to solve the problem, it's to bring awareness, which will then in end solve the problem.
We hope.
Once people become educated in a sense.
Yes.
But the natural question
yes.
follows, what if this education isn't enough? Do you think there should ever be some form of enforcement of guidelines in this sense?
No. No, I really don't. You're making me think here. You're making me.
It's a very tough question.
What do you think? I'm going to put it on to you
personally, now. Passionately, no.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say there'd be major issues of
regulation.
Of a government be having regulation over culture.
Yeah,
and I think it's sort of a common thing that falls into the cultural appropriation debate is that, like I said earlier, the commodifying of culture.
Yeah,
where its definition should be much more, I guess, vague than a lot of people would like it to be.
Yeah.
I mean, because culture is it's communitarian.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not it's not a binding force, and it's not something which can be bought and sold.
No.
And I think a lot of the time those sort of issues in terms of where it almost gets defined as intellectual property and almost gets into like almost copyright issues where it's this person is taking from us and they haven't repatriated in a sense. That would bring great issues.
I just feel like regulations takes away what is so organic about cultures and just kind of limits that.
And I think it would be tough to get closer to authoritarianism than a government saying, here's what you can do in terms of this culture and that culture. So would you say societal pressure in a sense? So if we abandoned rules and regulations and we move on to, should this be a wider societal pressure in terms of, I guess you would say, like cancel culture and that sort of thing, where it is, you messed out, off you go, see that?
Yeah.
If you do this, that'll happen to you. Or should it be much more interpersonal, which is saying, hey, maybe think about this?
I feel like, a bit of both. I don't think you can say only this one way will work and this is the way that we have to do it. I feel like on different levels for different, because there's just different examples really, and they're not on the same degree. Yeah. So I think
of course. So, it's very reasonable to point out there's a big difference between blackface and
and wearing a bindi.
Of course. Yeah. I think we've pretty much wrapped that up. That was fantastic. Yeah. I am now going to go to another song, The Exciting Times That We Live In. This is by Sam Fender, and it's called Hold Out. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome back. Those of you who are listening live are very lucky, because I played the same ad twice. Who doesn't want to hear about the Warwick SU?
We love the SU.
For the second
love
time.
The SU.
We do indeed love the SU. Do you work at the
I do work
Duck.
in the
I was going to say, we love the SU.
We love the SU. I love my employers.
They are the best people ever.
I love them.
Yes. That's why I played the ad twice. I was specifically asked. The only reason she agreed to came on, where her bosses were saying, like, if you get him to play the ad twice, we'll blow up. Anyway, is reality a dream? That's what we're going to be talking. Oh, it is? That was fast.
Who knows?
Moving on. Bye, everyone. No. So in the last segment, we had a very long conversation about cultural appropriation. Very interesting. And I guess the conclusion is just sort of, hey. maybe don't let the government get involved.
Yeah, but educate your friends.
Yeah, talk about it. Why not?
Yes,
why not?
Exactly. Join Discourse.
Join Discourse. That is the overall message of the episode. Join the Discourse Society, and maybe you'll see me there, and you can hear you can see my face apart from my disembodied voice. Wow. Segment 3 is reality a dream?
It's an interesting one. I'm excited for this. I'm excited.
As a PPE student, this was the first essay I ever wrote was on this topic. So I have long-standing love for this specific issue. The essay wasn't great. No. So expect this to be meh. So
a question like this, I mean.
You can't go wrong. You literally cannot go wrong. So to sort of introduce this topic, I'll be going over probably the most famous argument to say that reality is at least a dream, or at least we can't know. And that's the argument by Descartes, which was, he was
Cogito ergo sum.
I don't know what that was. What did you just say to me?
I think, therefore I am.
Was that Latin? But I think, therefore I am. I did not know that. I was literally about to say.
Have you not seen it everywhere?
No, I was literally about to say, I think, therefore I am, his famous statement. But then you started speaking in tongues, and I got very scared. I suddenly was very stressed. Yes, here's the famous statement, I think, therefore I am, which essentially said that we can't know anything in life, we can't know anything in existence, or anything is real apart from that you yourself exist.
Yeah.
Because as long as you have the ability to think, you know that in whatever form you may be in, your thinking exists. So his main argument falls under the dreaming argument, which is to say that when he's in a dream, so for example, right now, you look at your hand, I see my hand, I see 5 fingers, it's there, I can feel it, blah, blah, blah. If I was in a dream, I would look at my right hand and I would say, this is a hand, I can feel it, it looks the same. So therefore, if my hand is the same across dreaming and reality, how can I know that I'm not in a dream? Because I can't tell between the two. And that is essentially the boiled down of the argument around saying, basically, we can't know anything because we can never know when we're in a dream.
Yeah.
Which is to say, so I guess technically the question is less, is reality a dream? But more, can we know whether it's not? And essentially the point is, for example, with the Matrix argument, as soon as we get closer to the point we can make entirely realistic virtual reality, it's basically 99 infinite nines chance that we're going to be in some form of virtual reality. And I guess the question would simply be, do you think this is a dream? Ooh.
Well, you brought up the Matrix. You didn't bring up Inception.
That's actually closer. To
exactly.
I'm not a massive fan of Inception. I think it was great.
I liked it.
I liked Tom Hardy,
it.
But,
Really?
It was okay.
I've got Leo is always going to be in my heart.
Do you think they were in a dream at the end of that movie? Quick side note.
Who knows?
Because the top didn't stop spinning.
Yeah, exactly.
Exciting times, crazy.
Did he finally break into reality, or is he still in a dream?
Dun dun dun. Join Discourse and watch.
Exactly.
Messages of this radio
That's
show.
on next week.
So, what do you think?
What do I think?
What do you think?
Whoa.
Do you find Descartes' argument quite convincing? Or would you say, well, there's other things that need to be clarified? Can I tell the difference between a dream and reality?
Can you tell the difference? I mean, I think the biggest argument to say that we're not in a dream is that, bringing up Descartes, I am a conscious being. I'm having these thoughts. And there's a term in philosophy called qualia. It's that kind of phenomenal feeling when, let's say you go to a music concert, and you just have like this kind of incredible wave of feeling. How can you describe that? How can a simulation create that in a way? How can an algorithm create that?
So you'd say that there's sort of a metaphysical value to almost concepts of like emotion, for example, which could not be recreated.
Yeah.
I mean, you could simply say that, for example, we know right now that the brain can, you can inject like, I guess, dopamine into someone's head, and they'll feel a sort of euphoric pleasure. That could reasonably be simulated by some, form of simulation in a sense, or even, by a dream. For example, in a dream, you can experience those sort of feelings.
True.
And I guess the question is simply, well, it's important to recognize that this doesn't work for each other.
Yeah.
So whilst I can say, oh, I know that I'm real and I can feel these feelings.
Yeah.
You don't know that I do.
I could be part of your simulation.
You very much could.
I might not even be here.
Very much could. There was a very strange argument that I heard on, not to expose myself, but on the Joe Rogan podcast. Yes, I am 20 years old and a man. Where Elon Musk basically, he asked the question, do you think we're in a simulation? And he basically said, well, unlikely, mainly because real life would have to be phenomenally boring and horrible to make this into a simulation. To say that, well, this isn't extremely exciting.
Yeah.
There's not, unless the simulation's purpose is purely to recreate existence. But then you would simply say, well, why would it? Why wouldn't you make it a lot better?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we have magical powers? Why would we be restricted by things like gravity? Why couldn't we exist in these sort of things? So would you say that if this is a dream, it's a phenomenally uncreative one?
But then who knows? Maybe what we think is dreams and what are kind of magical and creative.
Ooh.
What if they are our reality?
The inverse.
Yes,
the inverse.
exactly.
Well, that leads quite well into about my essay I taught. I wrote. I have the fantastic counter-argument by Sosa.
Yes.
He wrote this, or she actually, I think. I can't remember. But they wrote this in 2017, and it was a counter-argument to Descartes' dreaming argument. One of the few that's actually really broken through.
Yeah.
Because Descartes' argument is very hard to disagree with, generally. Yeah. And essentially, it was similar to the idea of saying, in sort of metaphysics and metaphysical value around emotions. It was almost an epistemological argument, which basically said, right, first thing we have to do, distinguish between what dreaming is, what we think dreaming is, and what dreaming actually is.
Yeah.
So Descartes relies very heavily on saying dreams are like reality.
Yes.
But what Sosa would say is, well, there are a lot of distinctions in where we very obviously draw strong lines between dreams and reality. I mean, for example, the best one is to say, if I committed a murder in my dream, and I woke up and somehow someone knew about it, I'm not going to get I'm not going to get you arrested for it. So we already have that sort of vague distinction. And there's also issues where it essentially falls down to we can't form knowledge in a dream.
Yes.
And I guess, and then that sort of leads to saying, okay, so if we can't form knowledge in a dream, because a dream is similar to imagining. Dreams are basically the closest thing we can say they are to is like you imagining a scenario, where, because like dreams generally less first person, it's more about you imagining yourself doing something. So the question is, in order to ask the question, am I real or am I in reality? If you were in a dream or you were in some form of simulation, when you ask that question, if you were in that, you wouldn't be asking the question, you'd be imagining yourself asking the question.
True.
So
it's one big loop, really.
Exactly, yeah. So in order to actually be able to ask the question with any actual epistemological value, you have to be in reality.
Yes.
It's a strange argument.
Yes.
And I guess the obvious question from that would be, what would you say, are dreams closer to being... would you say dreams are closer to experiencing or closer to imagining something? Where would you say is that sort of line? Because, would you say that when you're in a dream, you're more like, you really think it's you and you're doing things? Or would you say it's epistemologically and sort of knowledge-wise, it's closer to me thinking about doing things?
Yeah, I feel like with dreams, unless you go through lucid dreaming, there isn't as much control as you probably think there is. Mm-hmm. Like I've had dreams where I feel like I've got a certain level of distance where I am literally just watching things unfold and I haven't had any control over this.
So you could say that perhaps one of the key issues of telling the difference between a dream and reality that hasn't been brought up by Sosa, I don't think it's been brought up by Descartes, is to say sort of external causational relationships.
Yes, yeah.
If they exist outside, if in a dream, for example, there's the classic writing trope, which is to say that the protagonist's actions influence the plot. Mm-mm. If you're in a dream, and like in real life, your actions don't necessarily influence things or things happen outside of your control, that can very much make it difficult to draw a distinction between the two because, as you said, as Sosa would more qualify, imagining you have control over the concept, where in a dream, you don't necessarily have that form of, and this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And I guess I could say, well, would you say that we can find a distinction between dreams and reality in that they have very different logics? In that when you're in a dream, there are things that don't necessarily happen, which you would say, oh, that's not supposed to work.
Yeah.
I can't fly in reality, those sort of things. Would you say that this distinction can sort of draw a line between what we know? In terms of right now, we know that there are certain things like causation and gravity, where in a dream, these things can be broken. It's
kind of really like the law of Occam's razor, like what is the simplest option? Because when I was studying philosophy, I kind of did follow the idea of like direct realism, that an apple is on a table. I see this apple on a table. It's because there is a physical apple on a table. I mean, there's not a pig flying in the sky because it's probably not the simplest option.
And I guess you could say that, for example, even if, to say like whatever the simplest option makes more sense, you could say, well, there are many things in what we would call reality that have happened that we couldn't at least fathom or understand. People didn't understand that gravity existed, whatever, or at least they experienced it. But have you ever heard of the Black Swan case? It was basically saying that in the UK, it was a known fact that all swans were white. It was just a thing that everyone knew. Yeah. But then when we discovered, in quotation marks, Australia, there were black swans. So therefore, the what was known as an actual fact and scientific fact was immediately disproven because, there are black swans. Yeah. And I guess you could say things like, even just gravity, that it can't be broken, or in certain senses, or very core fundamental things that we take to know could be broken. And whether that be in a dream or reality, you didn't really know.
And also, can we even trust our own perception right now? There's these examples social media kind of brought out. The dress argument? Yeah. Where people kind of say, blue, black. Yeah, is it blue, black and gold? Can we even trust our own perceptions now, really? So,
So you could say that, well, at least in terms of, it says, trusting your own perception, you can almost get into an argument of what is reality in a sense. In the case of, in terms of the dress, for those who saw it as blue and black, it's reality with blue and black.
Yeah.
But those who saw it as white and gold, it was white and gold for them. And I think it wasn't Kant who had this example, but it was someone who wrote a letter about Kant.
Okay.
And he basically said that if you were born with a pair of blue spectacles engraved into your head, always in front of your eyes, you would think the entire world is blue. Yeah. You would have no perception otherwise of blue.
Yeah.
But as far as we know, it's not actually
there is an
blue.
Argument, the Mary Room argument. Yeah.
The what, sorry?
The Mary Room argument about kind of colour perception. Imagine this woman, this scientist
called
who's
Mary?
called Mary, yes.
Oh.
What an exciting name.
I'm too quick.
Let's say she was born in a room which had no colour. No colour whatsoever. But she kind of learnt everything about colour through books and stuff like that. But she never experienced colour, ever. Grew up in this room, but then one time she left the room. What would she be experiencing? How would she feel? What is going on? What would her experience be like?
Well, I mean, most people probably say you can't learn about colour in an abstract form. Yeah. It's a very specific thing. It's the classic one. You can't really describe a colour unless it's relational. Yeah. Because colour as a concept is relational. It's saying, oh, that thing's red. What's red? Yeah. It's like that thing. But what's that thing? You just go around in circles.
So taking the pure empiricist way, you think that it's all that kind of knowledge, it's to do with experience.
And I guess this leads perfectly into the question of one that most of my family would end up asking. Does any of this even matter? What's the point? And I guess
dude.
You can fall into the issue of saying, all right, if I was talking to Descartes and he presented his arguments and I said, you know what, I'm not even going to bother trying to argue against you. What does it matter? Because I guess in the case of, whether I'm dreaming or not, since if I can't tell the difference truly, it's logical for me to act as if I wasn't. Because I don't have any actions that could, I guess, end it, because I can't even tell the difference. How would I ever be able to do it? So it's saying, well, what's the point then? Do you think that Descartes' argument, if you were to ascribe to it stringently and to say, right, he's right, I can't tell the difference, would that change how you acted at all? Would it change your life in any way?
No. I quite like the idea, actually, because I'm a atheist / agnostic, and having the idea that this isn't reality, kind of we're all in a simulation, pushes kind of reliance on me to when things go wrong. It's not all my fault. It's something else. It's just some bigger some greater, more civilized human.
That's our as like atheist agnostics. That's our out in a sense. That's our eternal life. Is that it's not real anyway. It's a simulation. I'll come back. It's fine.
What do you think then?
Personally, I would say in this issue, it wouldn't change much because
I don't think
logical.
so.
I would say, at least from my perspective, it's logical to assume that, all right, fine, I can't tell the difference. I'm still going to act as if this is real life, because what am I going to do? Oh, I'm in a dream. Oh, I know. Great. It doesn't matter. There's still meaningful concepts around what you do and in what forms that you exist in. And it's a case with a lot of philosophy. As a philosophy student, a lot of it doesn't really matter. You kind of get into issues like, it's interesting, then you kind of go, well, it's not going to change. No. Even conversation about perception. Yeah. It's like, it's really interesting, and it kind of changes how you perceive, perceive things. But whether it really changes anything, you'd go, well.
But does it need to change anything? Does it need to have a point, though? Does it need to have a purpose?
Yeah, or can it not just simply be, hey, I can't really know anything,
Exactly.
Very interesting. Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. Yeah. Now's the time, everyone's favourite bit, the plugging. Warwick Discourse Society. Yes. Every Tuesday at 6. Yes. At Warwick Discourse on Instagram, and I'm sure on other platforms soon, eventually. At Katie Fulton.
Yes,
on
thank you.
Twitter.
Yes.
This is the first time I remember to plug this for me. Follow me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube.
Subscribe, follow.
Subscribe. Smash that like button.
But does it matter? Is it all just a construct?
Yes.
Are we all just in a dream? Am I a robot right now? Would I pass the Turing test? Who knows?
It matters to me.
Who knows? It matters to me.
Plus.
It matters. Yeah, well, I'm just part of your simulation, so.
This is my simulation. You're all just living in it, all right? I saw it was a great tweet. Just before we close up, there was a great tweet that said, it was like, event happens, but how does this affect me, the protagonist of reality? But at Katie Fulton on Twitter, at Hugh Smiley1 on Twitter, that's me. Dutiful Future is on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. These shows are going on every week on every form. Yes. I've also made 2 YouTube videos about American politics, which are... Go watch them for yourself. They're very They exist. They
Yes.
are things.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on,
Thank
Katie.
you.
This has been great.
And in a few weeks' time, we are going to be doing this topic of are we living in a dream?
So if you want to have even more in-depth discussions
Yeah.
and hear me violently shout about Sosa and how everyone's stupid because this is real and cry, have an existential crisis,
Yes.
come along.
And me spurting some more Latin.
Intimidating you with Latin. I'm truly, I've been quaking
Yes.
for the last 20 minutes since
Yes.
you brought up some Latin. Thanks for listening, everyone.